Even if you've lived in the same place for years and years, there's no way you know everything about it. Just like these 15 people who never knew there were some most unexpected things hidden in their homes. Let's see what they found. Number 15. Blue Drums. In a small Colombian village lived Jose Mariana, a 65-year-old farmer. He'd been given land by the government to grow palm oil, a routine he had settled into comfortably. One sunny day, while working on an irrigation channel, Jose's shovel struck something hard. Curious, he dug around. Guess what he found under the soil? Large, blue barrels. At first, Jose wondered what these barrels could be doing buried on his land. Imagine his shock when he opened them to find they were filled with cash, a mind-boggling total of $600 million. But how did this huge amount of money get into the farm of a poor farmer? It turned out the barrels belonged to Pablo Escobar, the notorious king of cocaine. It's said that at one point, he had about 1/5 of all the $100 bills in the world buried in Colombia. After all, when you're making $420 million a week, you can't run to the bank weekly to deposit the cash, right? So he had most of it buried at random places in Colombia. Now, you might be thinking this was Jose's lucky break, right? Wrong. The law intervened and the government claimed the money, citing it wasn't legally his. So there was Jose back to farming with just an unbelievable story to tell about the day he found and lost a fortune. But still, lucky for him, he found something good hidden in his house, unlike this next person who found the worst possible thing. Number 14. A frozen housewarming gift. This is the story of a man who bought a house in the Bronx. To be exact, he bought it online, sight unseen, for $200,000. Yeah, you heard that right. He chose online shopping for this like it was a pair of shoes or something. Anyway, he finally decided to check out his new 8-bedroom place. When he reached the site, he observed that the place had been sitting empty for over a year with broken windows and all. He started the tour, and what did he find in one of the bedrooms? A frozen body. The poor guy was just frozen solid, with bruises on his face and head. Can you imagine walking into your new house and finding that? The police came and found this unidentified man. He was probably in his 30s, just lying there. They said he had clear signs of trauma, but no one had a clue how long he'd been in that house. It was the most unusual housewarming gift anyone has ever gotten, right? But lucky for him, he discovered it before moving in. However, this family was not so lucky in this matter. Number 13. Free spices. This Bretsius family bought a home in Schuylkill County. After 4 years, they decided to add some insulation to a room. But guess what they found instead? The walls were already insulated with dead animal carcasses, old spices, and a bunch of other stuff. Imagine the horror! The family revealed that the critters were not just stuffed in there, they were wrapped in newspapers from the 1930s and 40s. These odd things were so carefully stuffed behind layers of drywall that their inspector didn't find a thing before they bought the house. They couldn't leave those things inside, so they contacted their insurance company to get cash for renovation. Unlucky for the Bretsius family, the insurance company refused to pay because, according to them, the weird stuff was there before the policy. So the family had to shell out like $20,000 to fix it themselves. But let's be honest, what was that stuff even doing in there? Turns out, stuffing animals in walls is part of an old practice called powwowing or Dutch magic, which is used for healing. But all it did was make almost everyone sick and leave a stink that they just can't get rid of. But not everyone is as unlucky as the Bretsius family. Some have better walls concealing far more pleasant surprises. Number 12. Valuable cans. Serena Jennings and Clinton McCallum had big dreams when they bought a rundown house in 2008. They hired a crew, led by Randy Bewley, to give it a makeover. When the crew was tearing down walls and revamping rooms, something incredible happened. The team found a hidden stash, a cool $500,000 packed in 2 ammo cans. This discovery set off a wild legal battle. Jennings and McCallum claimed that the money was theirs since it was their house. Bewley wanted the money because he claimed his team found it. Then, out of nowhere, Miss Grande, who was representing the estate of the previous owner, jumped in and demanded the money for herself. In the end, the court finally ruled that the money was mislaid, meaning it belonged to the estate of the house's original owner. This case was truly a legal roller coaster from start to finish. However, not all surprising finds in a home have to be stacks of cash to be considered treasures. Number 11. Van Gogh paintings. In 2016, the Italian police were on the tail of some mobsters, who they suspected of cocaine trafficking near Naples. The police got a tip that the mobsters were doing their shady deals in a farmhouse, so the cops decided to bust them. And when they did, they found way more than just evidence of drug deals. They seized assets worth about $21.6 million, including a plane, apartments, and get this, 2 Van Gogh paintings. And not just any paintings, they were View of the Sea at Scheveningen from 1882, and Congregation Leaving the Reformed Church in Nuna from 1884. The paintings were wrapped in cotton sheets, boxed up, and hidden behind a wall, which is why these masterpieces were in surprisingly good shape. It turned out these paintings had been stolen in the first place from Amsterdam's Van Gogh Museum back in 2002. The thieves had pulled off a daring heist, breaking it through the roof. Despite the museum's tight security with guards and cameras, all they left behind was a broken window, a rope, and a ladder. Luckily, the cops revived the iconic pieces. The mobsters did a tremendous job hiding the paintings for 14 years, but there are some things that can't stay hidden for long. Number 10. A nest of snakes. Ben and Amber Sessions thought they hit the jackpot in September 2009 when they snapped up a 5-bedroom rural house for less than $180,000. A dream come true, right? Well, not exactly. Shortly after moving in, they discovered a slithery surprise. Their property was crawling with snakes. Turns out, their bargain home was infested with non-poisonous garter snakes. Amber's first hint of trouble was seeing 8 snakes on the first day they moved in, and it only escalated from there. One day, 3 months in, they caught 43 snakes. The last straw came with the birth of their daughter. Just a day after she was born, the Sessions decided they couldn't risk their family's safety. They abandoned the house in December 2009. Tragically, this decision plunged them into bankruptcy. Unlike this couple whose home bought them only bad luck, the next person found something that changed a person's life. Number 9. Ninja Burglar. Matthew Emanuel decided to upgrade his backyard with a landscaping project. Little did he know, he was about to uncover a hidden treasure. He hired some landscapers to work on the trees, and as they were clearing the area, they found a safe. A safe that Matthew didn't know was hidden there for years. When Matthew cracked open the safe, he found a small fortune inside. Over $16,000 in cash, along with gold and diamonds. But Matthew wasn't the type to keep what wasn't his. He immediately called the police. It turned out that the safe belonged to his neighbor who had moved out by then. The safe was stolen in December 2011 by the notorious Ninja Burglar. Everyone was afraid of him back in the 2000s because he was a thief responsible for over 100 burglaries. Both the police and the neighbor had given up hope of ever seeing the safe again. But thanks to Matthew's honesty, he was able to return the safe, with all its precious contents to its rightful owner. He found an address inside the safe that led him straight to them. What a story, right? But not all strange discoveries find their way back to their original owners. Number 8. Body Bag. Back in 2015, Beverly Gibson was sorting through her new Detroit home, especially the garage, which was filled with stuff the previous owner had left. It was October 27th, and she was deep into organizing, tossing out old items when she came across something downright bizarre: a used body bag. Yep, you heard that right. But thankfully, it was empty, no awful contents. The bag did have a tag, though, marked Unknown Male 2005, and the name Timothy White. Beverly's mind started racing. This has to be a clue to something. She suddenly remembered that there was a funeral home right across the street, so she started thinking maybe the bag was linked to them. So naturally, she called in and asked the funeral home about this bag and its specific tag name. To her surprise, they denied any connection to it. The Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office looked into their records, hoping to find this Timothy White from 2005, but they came up empty. No matches, no leads. So there was Beverly, left with this strange relic in her garage. Just a regular day in Detroit, maybe? Sure, Beverly found a weird piece in her garage, but the next guy's hidden surprise at home led to a whole different kind of shock. Number 7. Burnt money. This dad in Sydney had a unique idea for saving up to pay off his mortgage. He sold his sports car in 2012 and got a bunch of cash in $20, $50, and $100 bills. Wanting to keep it safe and out of temptation's reach, he thought, where's the one place no one ever uses at home? The answer? Well, the oven. So he stashed his cash there. But unlucky for him, his wife, who had never used the oven before, decided to bake something. She preheated the oven, not knowing she was actually cooking their cash stash. Australian money is mostly plastic, so it all melted into a gooey mess. They thought they'd lost everything, but there is this rule in Australia. If you have more than 80% of a banknote left, you can get it replaced. Lucky for them, about 80% of their notes were still recognizable, so the Reserve Bank came to the rescue and replaced the damaged notes. It was a close call. But the burnt money story is nothing compared to the next find's unbelievable surprise. Number 6. Medieval times. Colin Steer was living in a Victorian house in Plymouth, Devon. One day, he decided to redecorate. He noticed a strange dip in his living room floor and got curious. Digging a bit, he found something totally unexpected: a hidden well right there under his floor. Back then, with 3 young kids around, his wife Vanessa was worried about safety, so she asked him to cover it up. And so, it stayed hidden for 34 years until Colin retired in 2012, and then it turned into his pet project. He started digging deeper. About 5 feet down, he unearthed an old sword. This cool find hinted that the well might date back to medieval times, maybe as far back as the 1500s. But that's not all. He kept digging. After 17 feet, he found an old ring and a coin from 1725. Just wow! Colin then shared his plans to turn this well into a feature in his living room, maybe a coffee table. Imagine having a piece of history right in the middle of your house. What Colin found was a small piece of medieval treasure. However, this next home was hiding something much bigger. Number 5. Treasure Trove. Walter Samusco from Carson City was the quiet type, keeping to himself. So, when neighbors hadn't seen him for a while, they got worried and called the cops, especially after a strange smell started wafting from his house. What they found was Walter, at the age of 69, had passed away from heart problems. In fact, he'd been gone for over a month. People thought he didn't have much, with just $200 in his bank account. But here's where it gets wild. When the cleanup crew arrived, they hit the jackpot in his garage. They found boxes filled with gold. Coins, bullion, you name it. There were tiny dos pesos, $20 gold pieces, Austrian ducats, Krugerrands, and English sovereigns, some dating back to the 1840s. We're talking enough gold to fill 2 wheelbarrows. Walter and his mom had been living in that house since the 70s, quietly collecting this treasure. The IRS grabbed a hefty chunk in taxes, about 750 grand, but the rest went to his only known relative, a cousin in California. Who would have guessed this quiet guy had a hidden gold fortune? Walter didn't live long enough to enjoy all that cash. However, this next family decided not to use their treasure for another reason. Number 4. An open ceiling panel. In Utah, Josh Farron was messing around in his workshop when he spotted a weird bit of carpet sticking out from his ceiling. When he pulled it out, he found a secret attic door. He climbed up the attic and looked around, and that's when he found a metal box. And guess what? It was full of cash, all rolled up and tied. But that wasn't all. Josh kept looking and found 7 more boxes and 2 huge trash bags, all loaded with money. $45,000 to be exact. It could have changed their lives, but Josh thought the best thing to do was give it back because it would have set a good example for his kids. So he called the people who used to own the house. They were as surprised as Josh and guessed it must have been their dad who had all that money. Can you imagine? Finding a fortune in your attic and then just handing it over? That's something else. The next couple did something similar with their surprising find. Number 3. The wrong fit. Rabbi Noah Muroff from New Haven, Connecticut bought a desk for $150 on Craigslist. When they reached home with the desk, they ran into a little problem. The desk was half an inch too big for the doorway. So they decided to take it apart, even though it was the last thing they wanted to do. As they dismantled the desk, they discovered a plastic bag hidden behind a drawer, accessible only because they took the desk apart. Inside the bag, a whopping 98 grand in bills. Muroff and his wife knew what they had to do. They called the woman they bought the desk from to tell her about the money. She was stunned. She had forgotten about the inheritance she tucked away in the desk. The Muroffs drove back to return the cash, taking their 4 kids along to teach them a valuable lesson. The lady was so grateful that she insisted on returning their $150 for the desk. The Muroffs did the right thing, but this next person, not so much. Number 2. The rich filing cabinets. The anti-corruption team in Nigeria was on high alert back around 2017. It was on the lookout for corrupt deals because Nigeria had been struggling with corruption and missing funds for years. So, in 2017, when they got a tip about a woman in shabby clothes moving bags in and out of a Lagos apartment, they knew they had to check it out. Busting into the apartment, they couldn't believe their eyes. There was $43 million in cash just lying around. And that's not all. They also found 23.2 million naira, which is around 76,000 US dollars. That's a serious amount of money to be found in one place. It turned out the apartment belonged to Ayodele Oke, who was a Nigeria spy. Nigeria was obviously not paying him that much, so the millions were corrupt money. After this massive cash discovery, Oke was suspended and all his cash was confiscated. The cash the cops found at Oke's home destroyed his career, but the thing this next man found in his house cost him his love life. Number 1. Monopoly for everyone. Nyland Newell was living in his 1930s bungalow in Fresno. One day, he decided to renovate his home. Guess what he found when he removed the bedroom carpet? Hardwood floor? No. Guess again. Ceramic tiles? Nope. Let us tell you, it was a gigantic Monopoly board. Yup, the entire floor was a Monopoly game board, with Connecticut Avenue, Pall Mall, and all. But this Monopoly board was not all the same as the standard one. Instead of the usual community chest cards, it had silhouettes of naked ladies. Nyland could not quite figure out the rules or get the full story from the previous owner, but he was curious. On the other hand, his wife just wanted to paint over the saucy Monopoly board and turn their bedroom into a normal room again. Unfortunately, this difference in opinion eventually led to their divorce. Who would have thought Monopoly could play a role in a marriage ending? These were some wild stories, don't you agree? If you enjoyed them, you're in for a treat. Next, we're telling the stories of banks being looted or cash mistakenly ended up in people's accounts. Check out how.